Thank you for listening to The Luminous Mind. Remember to subscribe to our free podcast so you won't miss any of our illuminating content. Here is episode 183.
We want to help provide more choices for students, and we want to help provide more individualized learning. And at its heart, there's nothing more individualized than a great CTE program.
Benjamin Franklin once said, "Do not curse the darkness, rather light a candle instead." If you're ready to set your mind on fire, then prepare yourself for the Luminous Mind with your host, Rebecca Bowman.
Today's Firestarter is Pat Keeney. Pat is the Director of College and Career Planning. He's a career educator who has spent time in the classroom consulting, launching a company, and with K12. Pat has also been a learning coach many years for his own son, who's also named Patrick, and has seen the online experience from that perspective. Although he is presently a product manager, Pat served for almost 7 years as part of the K12 product development group, where he was the lead instructional designer on many award-winning high school math and science courses. It led to the conversion of 75 labs to virtual and video-based labs and helped in designing games like X-Germs. Prior to his time with K12, Pat was a consultant with NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center and founded an online education company. His early career consisted of 17 years of working in classrooms in Maryland and Pennsylvania, teaching high school mathematics and science, and publishing advancement placement programs for 3 school districts. Pat is also a past Firestarter, and you can hear more on episode 145. Welcome, Pat.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's fun to have you back again. We learned so much about you on that episode 145. So I'd really recommend going back and listening to that. I think today we're going to really discuss and focus more on Pat's work on expanding CTE programs for K12. We hear a lot about STEM, but how is STEM different from CTE, or how are they the same?
So that's a great question. And first of all, when we talk about just the term Pat's work in air quotes, one of the things that I want to be sure to do is to make sure that people know that K12 is a large company and that we have the benefit, therefore, of having a lot of really talented people who have put together the highest quality CTE program that we possibly could for students, and that we continue to grow that program. I'm really excited about some of the things that we're going to be doing in the second year and the third year of the program, which maybe we'll talk about a little bit later. But straight on up through our executive team, there is amazing support for career readiness and for building high-quality CTE programs that are focused on solving the huge workforce crisis, really, that we're in the midst of. So the difference between CTE and STEM, and it's a little bit of alphabet soup. STEM, which is the thing that most people probably know about, is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and an integrated approach to all 4 of those. So just in a nutshell, most of us learned science in science class, math in math class, never learned engineering, and we use calculators, if you're my age at least. And that was about the only technology probably that I used. STEM is really an approach of taking all 4 of those, and instead of them being in isolated places, really solving interesting, authentic problems and doing them in a way where we're using science, we're using math, we're using technology in order to do that, which technology is in everybody's hands today all the time. And then looking at what engineering is and how we can use engineering to solve the problem. And engineering is really just a process whereby we design a solution and then we continue to iterate on that solution until the solution is what we need it to be. So, we come up with a solution, we have a lot of people look at it, people try it out, and then, we make it better. And that's what STEM is. And the more students can be exposed to doing things like that, the more relevance they find in their high school or actually even grade school experience, because students are starting really as early as first grade and doing things like putting machines together in competitions and things like that. And not only do they find more relevance, but it also helps to connect them not just to their classes, but to the outside world a little bit better. CTE, on the other hand, is career technical education, CTE. And career technical education spans a wide range. Think of any occupation that you can think of. CTE is the education, the training, the information, knowledge, and skills that somebody might need in order to be able to be part of that occupation, to build a career, to be eligible for certain types of jobs. There's an intersection between the two because CTE is career technical education is meant to help to fill a huge workforce gap that we see in America today. And that workforce gap is something that is silent, it's unprecedented, but believe me, states across the country are feeling it. And that is the need for what are referred to as middle workers. These are people, actually jobs, because we don't have the people to fill them. But these are people who don't have a 4-year degree in college, but they also have gone through maybe a little bit more than the typical common education that you get with a high school diploma. So a couple common examples of that: paralegals, medical transcriptionists, CNAs. These are all people who have gone not the extra mile, but just one extra step, and really think of it as education with a purpose, so that whenever a student goes through a CTE program, they're walking out of that CTE program not with just a high school diploma, but with an opportunity so that day one out of high school, they can be part of the workforce because they have that extra credential. They're eligible for those middle jobs. And the Georgetown Center for, the name escapes me right now, but Dr. Carnevale does amazing research there. It's research into the workforce. It's in fact such amazing research that it was in a seminal document called Pathways to Prosperity that was produced by Harvard early in the 20-teens. So I don't know, maybe 6-7 years ago. What the research shows is if you think of all the jobs in the universe that are possible, about 2/3 of those jobs are going to require some type of education beyond college. And we know that only about a quarter of people go on to college and attempt to get past 2 years of college and to earn diplomas. So when we talk about the gap, that's the gap. We've got 2/3 of all jobs where we need something beyond high school. And then we have really a small percentage of our population that has even a BA or a BS in college, a 4-year degree. And that's the gap that we're trying to bridge. STEM, on the other hand, is one occupational area, engineering, technology, the pure sciences, teaching in those areas where there is a job shortage. And there's a special type of shortage and a special type of gap there where the majority of folks who work in STEM right now are men. If you look, for instance, at my son's freshman engineering class at West Virginia, 5 out of 6 students are men. So girls are exceptionally under-indexed in STEM. What we find is that as girls make their decisions about their college plans, they tend to go and veer off into healthcare. And we certainly need healthcare workers as well. But there are a lot of really bright minds that could do a great job in the fields of engineering and related fields. So I hope that answered the question, maybe too in-depth. But on the other hand, CTE, career technical education, really is designed to help students think of it as power up so that when they graduate, they have they're kind of a different level. They're a little bit of a higher level, or they're ready to get a 2-year degree. And there's a lot of value in getting 2-year degrees. Sometimes you can earn more with a 2-year degree than with a 4-year degree. And STEM is an important field, but it's one of many, many different occupational fields across the country.
Yeah. Well, I love the idea of STEM anyway, because I think that we do miss out when we segment the education. You know, you may not really like mathematics, but once you see it applied to, you know, how you could build something or whatever, all of a sudden I think it really pushes it. I mean, it creates a self-directed type of mindset for the kid to go, well, I want to learn math because I want to do this in science, or I want to do this in engineering, or, you know, it really does bring it like to an application setting where kids all of a sudden they love it and thrive for it. But do you feel like there's anything else that's maybe other than not being able to fill the gap for jobs or some of those things? Do you feel like there's something else that's driving, STEM and CTE programs? What's driving that?
Let me start with STEM because I think that's the easiest. I think STEM is driven by a continued, really a popular impression of what STEM fields are and what they're like. And in many cases, Rebecca, I think it's perception, and I'll tell you why. I went to college, and when I went to college, I started as a biology major, and then at one point or another, I realized I didn't want to do that. I went and spoke to somebody, and I said, I really like science and math, but I'm not quite sure where I want to go. And they said, well, you sound like you might want to be a teacher, you might want to be a chemical engineer. I said, well, that'd be great. And I said, so, what do you think I should do? And they said, well, chemical engineers tend to make 3 times as much as teachers. And I said, okay, I like money. So I'm going to go into a chemical engineering program. Unfortunately, they didn't tell me that a chemical engineering program was mostly physics. And physics was my worst class in high school. And so I had a lot of catching up to do. Now, I had a good experience. And ironically, I became a physics teacher. That was my first job. That was my first career place to go. But on the other hand, it just illustrates that we have people who get involved in engineering for the money or for many other reasons, and they don't know or understand what engineering even really is or what engineers do. I think a lot of the positive impression, though, goes back to the idea that this is the United States. We're Americans. Americans, I think, if nothing else, are characterized by having a can-do attitude. I was born in the 60s. When I was 7, I saw his first step foot on the moon. And certainly that's something that just sticks with you forever. And I think subconsciously that becomes associated with STEM. In fact, there's a movie out, you may know, that is about a young African-American woman who helped us get into space. It's a really, really good movie. But at the same time, we're still making movies about how great the space race was back in the 60s. So that's the STEM side. Unfortunately, nobody is making movies about how awesome it is to be a medical transcriptionist, or kind of the more common promise in America, which is, if you work hard, there are plenty of jobs for you when you get to a certain level of education. And today, unfortunately, that level of education is just the next rung beyond high school. And I don't want to make it sound like high school isn't, it's not enough, because there are some outstanding high schools out there. But really, in order to be part of the meaningful job market today, obtaining that first credential, that first certificate, having that first internship or first job shadowing experience is really critical and can help a family or a student really get ahead. And unfortunately, our high schools today, for the most part, aren't set up to just naturally provide that type of experience. So I think STEM has this really great connotation because it stretches the mind as to the possibilities. And we've all seen these types of things in our lives. On the other hand, CTE may not yet have caught up with that, simply because I don't think the dream of having outstanding CTE education in all of our schools is even close to having been realized. And that's why we've really started to focus on what does outstanding CTE education look like? How can we implement that in all of our schools? And thereby, I think we talked about it in the last episode, thereby really disrupt the thinking in education that this isn't something that's an extra add-on. It's not something that you do at the vo-tech, which is kind of a dirty word from the last century, really. But it's something that's part of everybody's education and helps make everybody feel relevant. They love it. They practice with things. They work with things, etc.
Well, yeah, I mean, it kind of goes back to what you're saying about America being a can-do we have that can-do attitude. We also were the people, we love inventing things, working with our hands, really, getting in there and building stuff. And that's really one thing. I mean, I feel like where we're missing out now, like you said, we've made high school almost like a one-track path. When as we forget all these other kids that might like that type of job of, more working with your hands and building stuff and creating things. And so I definitely think that it's very needed. I've also heard that there are, mechanics making big money now because it's such a skill that people aren't being trained for. But let's kind of talk about that, how career and technology training is different from like our old technical school. Like we said, that's kind of a bad word. How is that? How are we trying to make it different than what we remember from the past?
Oh, I think one of the things that you just brought up is wages for jobs that we're talking about that are in air quotes, that are middle jobs, and how they've caught up to wages and in some cases surpassed wages for jobs that have a 4-year college degree. And then the second part of that that's more insidious, and that is that students are carrying over $1 billion in debt after graduating college. Certainly that's collective, but the challenge is that many of those students aren't finding jobs, or they're not finding jobs that are in high-paying fields. And so, they're having trouble. They went to college. They did a lot of work. They went there for 4 years.
Well, and we're told to do that to be successful. That's what we're told to do.
Isn't that kind of the American quote, the American dream? That's what I was told to do whenever I grew up. But it's a pretty big shift. If you compare the two, Rebecca, you can be, and ironically, I don't know if I'm not putting my money where my mouth is, but my son's in a 4-year engineering program. He's in the first year of it. He's working hard. He's going to have to work very hard for 3 more years. The reward at the end of the rainbow for him is that I think the sky will be the limit for him. But the way that careers are today, I'll bet that 15 years from now, he's not simply doing engineering work. He'll be doing some other type of work that's engineering related, but it'll bring another field into whatever he's doing, et cetera. But let's say that he were to continue to do engineering work. He's going to come out of college with debt. He's going to come out of college, again, having worked hard. He's going to have to find a job. And if he's in the right engineering field, a biomedical engineering, for instance, he's going to have a job. If he takes that engineering education and merges that with maybe some more debt, but maybe a master's in law, they will send chauffeurs for him, almost literally, to go to an interview. But that's not what happens in most cases. In some cases, students graduate, they have an engineering degree, they've worked really hard, and they can't find a job.
Yeah.
And depending on how the economy is moving, sectors of the economy, I remember whenever I was going and working toward my chemical engineering degree, nuclear engineering was a hot field in air quotes. And we all know in the 80s what happened with 3 Mile Island. There are accidents that have happened since then, and negative connotation now that nuclear energy has, or that at least it absorbed then, and nuclear engineering jobs kind of went up in smoke, and so that can happen if you're in the wrong field. Now contrast that with maybe you earn an MSSC certificate in manufacturing, or you earn a technician certificate as you go to a 2-year community college. You come out of that almost earning the same, maybe within 10 or 20% of an engineering student first, second, third year. And at the same time, you don't have the debt.
Yeah.
And so
it's a game changer right there.
Yeah. When I think about it, my son's coming home this weekend, actually. And so it might be something that we talk about. But I've probably just made myself sound like, one of the dumbest people in the world because, we're choosing the engineering route. But by the same token, there are so many great middle jobs where those middle jobs pay close to, equal to, in some cases more than what somebody with an engineer or somebody with a college degree in that same area or same field will carry. That it's a great plan. It's a great way to go. And the last thing I'll say about that is there's no reason, if you have a 2-year associate's degree from a community college, that either immediately or later in life, even after you've established a family, that you can't go and you can't complete that 4-year degree, or more. And so those options are always open. And I think what we need to do, Rebecca, we being the educational system in our country, and I've been blessed with the opportunity to see some places across the United States in the brick and mortar world that do an amazing job of this, but there just aren't enough. We need to prepare students for the world of today the world that they're going to see in 10 and 20 years, which is the world, that I've described, where most of the jobs will require something beyond high school, as opposed to the world that we grew up in.
Yeah. Well, and I wonder too, we talked about how students, they come out and they can't get a job, but I know a lot of students that are going to school, they plan to go to college, and they've never held a job at all. I mean, and so I wonder if maybe pushing them kind of more towards a career technology, like you said, I mean, college can be later down the road, but it gives them the skills that they can work right away to see if that's really what they want to do, have that experience of really what the world is like before they're just all of a sudden in college. And when they come out at 24, 25, however old they are anymore, I can't remember how old I was. But anyway, when they come out, they've got some experience, and then they're a lot more valuable. Do you see that as being?
Rebecca, that might be one reason that we find a lot of 20 to 25-year-olds still living in their parents' basements these days.
Yeah.
Because they haven't had the type of experience that you just described. But again, I couldn't agree with you more. That's part of, I think, a high quality high school experience. And whenever we talk about CTE, by the way, we're not talking about replacing the 3 R's. We're not talking about replacing the core curriculum in any way. We're talking about what students take and what students do whenever they take their electives. So it's using those electives to be more valuable and more relevant with regard to where the student wants to go in life. So we're not turning their entire education upside down. But I think one of the aspects to a really high quality CTE program is to help provide students with outstanding work-based types of experiences. And the first type of work-based experience that people gravitate to and they think about is the internship. And for students who are, maybe 11th graders or 12th graders who are eligible and ready for that type of an experience, internships are great. But they can be as simple, A, as summer jobs, B, as job shadowing. There are services today that will remotely bring professionals into your classroom to talk about why the Pythagorean theorem is really valuable in the work that this person is doing as a game designer, as opposed to the teacher trying to stand there and answer the most commonly asked question in any math class, which is, when am I ever going to use this? And even if a teacher answers the question, students know that the teacher's never done that before. They're educational professionals. They're not game designers, and they aren't tradesmen. They aren't construction workers or carpenters or welders, where the Pythagorean theorem might be really useful. So those types of work-based experiences, starting in 9th grade and 10th grade, where students have the opportunity to expand their universe and expand their vision as to what skills and knowledge they're going to need whenever they're in the workplace. And then in addition to that, the different types of jobs and occupations that are available to them is really important. And then again, internship opportunities. Let me add to that, by the way, Rebecca, dual credit opportunities where students, I know we have a lot of students who do this, especially in Idaho, by the way, which I know is where you're from, but we have many students, literally a couple thousand across our managed public schools, who take advantage of the opportunity to, again, save money, wipe out potential debt by taking courses that they get college credit for while they're still in high school. That's another way that they get their hands on stuff, get their hands on equipment. They have the opportunity to work with tangible hands-on stuff as much as they might need to. But in addition to that, that also puts them in a college setting where they're already starting to move forward toward that opportunity of obtaining an associate's degree or a credential. And when I talk about credentials and certificates, there are many credentials that students can earn before they graduate high school. And again, when we talk about a high quality CTE program, that's another component of that, where students at least are being set up with the opportunity to earn a CNA, to earn a programming credential, to earn an MSSC in manufacturing, and so on.
Wow. Well, let's talk about maybe some problems and challenges that you have implementing these programs into schools or, setting these up and what you've learned from it. I mean, K12 is pretty much known as being like an online school. And it sounds like what you're trying to do is really get kids to get some hands-on experience. Is that true? I mean, is that what the emphasis is there?
I think first, Rebecca, our commitment is to high quality CTE programs. We're not interested, for instance, in building CTE programs that are just some courses strung together in a course catalog where we might get state funding. It's no different for the student than just taking other electives. And so certainly that hands-on component is an important part of it. And you can imagine that a company that has specialized in virtual online education, biting off a challenge like this, certainly we've given a lot of thought to the hands-on component piece. How do students do that? I mean, let's face it, you or I would not want a nurse taking blood from our forearm if the only place that they had practiced beforehand was online. We would hope that person had drawn real human blood out of a real human arm before and had kind of that hands-on experience. So we've given a lot of thought to that. And I can walk you through 3 or 4 areas where we have found some great partners and some great opportunities to meet that need. The first partner is, I would say, Skills USA, but really there are 8 organizations that are like Skills USA. Skills USA, just as a comp, many people know or in their high school experience were part of FFA. And FFA is another one of those types of organizations. They're called Career Technical Service Organizations. And they tend to be somewhat career field specific. So FFA, Future Farmers of America, definitely focused in agriculture. I remember they used to wear the purple jackets and things like that. Skills USA is an organization that is also a CTSO, and our career schools have Skills USA chapters. They are not just chapters in name, but they're chapters where we have student leaders. There are community service projects. There is a growing momentum. Our career schools are just a year or 2 years old. So you can imagine that everything that we introduce in our schools is good, but it's growing. And we're really excited about that. There are some other CTSOs that at selected schools are available. I know at our Idaho Technical Career Academy, BPA, Business Professionals of America, is one of the CTSOs that they work with. HOSA is a CTSO that our Colorado school works with. And so there are those outside leadership opportunities in actually getting your hands on building a business opportunity, organizing, project managing. But one of the keys is also learning what you have to know in order to be in the workforce. Some people call them soft skills. I tend to think of them as employability skills or professional skills. And these are skills that everybody, when they graduate from high school and get into the workplace, wish they had been taught, but there's no class for it. And so there are things like that'll tell you to show up on time, how to shake somebody's hand, how to communicate with somebody and look them straight in the eye, how to build a resume, how to manage your time, and how to do some basic project management and how to do presentations, things like that. So our students take a specialized class from Skills USA that's totally devoted to employability skills. So that's one piece. Second piece is we have a dedicated individual at each of our schools that is charged with building relationships across the state, because our schools are statewide, as you may know, with companies, post-secondary institutions that want to provide work-based experiences for students. When we talk about this workforce challenge, the challenge isn't theoretical. There are companies in states that need workers. An example of that is in Wisconsin, the Heavy Machine Operators Union, Local 139, needs qualified workers who might want to make $60,000 a year driving things that I used to play with when I was 5 years old as Tonka trucks, which could not be much more fun in my mind. But $60,000 a year to start is a pretty good wage. So they have joined in with our Wisconsin Destinations Academy as a partner. We provide a curriculum that was written by them. And then in addition to that, they have this wonderful facility in Coloma, Wisconsin, several football fields in size, lots of sand, and lots of these machines. And again, it looks like if you take yourself back, if you're a guy at least, when you were 5 years old, it looks like the perfect playground for Tonka toys and things like that. And then awesome. The other thing that person really is charged to do is to help build those work-based experiences, whether they're job shadow experiences, internships, etc. And then lastly, our dual enrollment programs. So programs where we work with local colleges and universities. Really excited about our technical career academy in Idaho, where they have built relationships with colleges, and students both can work with those colleges and take courses there. But in addition to that, students can actually take some K12 career courses, and we're really honored that they can earn a college credit through Northern Idaho. We're so excited that they feel that our courses are high enough quality that they would give credit for them. All of those components, whether it's Skills USA or dual enrollment or work-based experiences, they're not like we didn't invent them, but in pulling those types of experiences together in something that a student can go through from 9th grade to 12th grade and really come out with a high school diploma plus and plus and plus. And then have so many more opportunities open to them. We see at some brick and mortar schools. We see at some career technical academies that are brick and mortar as well. And again, there are some outstanding academies like that. We're just trying to build one of the finest programs in each of those states that we can as well.
Before we go on, let's listen to this message. Changing a paradigm takes some study, but like me, you are probably super busy. That's why we've teamed up with Audible. Go to our website, theluminousmind.net. Get a free month of Audible with 2 audiobooks, thousands of titles in exchange for only books that you absolutely love. You too can be learning on the go to keep that fire burning. Back to the Luminous Mind with Pat Keeney, who's helping to create education with a purpose. Well, and that does sound like quite a challenge. I mean, taking an online school, but like you said, I mean, where you're able to bridge the gap. The thing that I love about it, like in Idaho, one of the big problems is that kids really go outside of the state a lot to get educated and then end up staying outside. I mean, the wages aren't that well, but aren't as high in Idaho as they are in other places, so kids stay away. But the cool thing is, it sounds like you're using the local resources to help get these kids educated. And then I think then in turn, they'll stay, where they're at because they'll realize there's opportunity there. Is that? We
are. And I think we envision a day where, and I know that Idaho has some really remote areas. And I've been to Boise Boise is a beautiful place. If it wasn't so cold, I know that we would love to come out and, maybe.
You'd really hate my side of the state, yeah, because it's way colder over on this side of the state. Anyway,
but there are brick and mortar schools that are fine schools, but they're small. And one of the barriers to implementing a career program in a school is it costs money. Because you have to have teachers that have certain certifications.
Facilities. And
you have to have some facilities, right? And obviously, you have to have that person who's going to go out in the community. And it may be a small community where there aren't that many opportunities, but they have to mine those opportunities so that they're ready for students. I see a day when we contract with school districts that are like that, and essentially they keep their students. The students go through the 4 core courses at the school, and they participate in the school's extracurricular activities, and they're still in the community. But where we can provide, because we have a statewide reach and we have all these things in place, we can provide the specialized teacher, the specialized courses, Skills USA or FFA or whatever that organization is appropriate, whatever that needs to be, and so on. And so I know a lot of times we are in a position where it sounds like we're on the other side of the fence from brick and mortar schools. But really, I think the challenge here is solving the workforce challenge, the workforce gap that we see. It's not just K-12 that's going to do it. It's not just our destinations academies or our other schools, but I think it's a complete change in that area, at least in our educational system. And nothing less will take care of this challenge that we're going to see. It's here, but that will come over the next decade or two into really, really sharp focus.
Awesome. And of course, K-12's on the, cusp of pushing that too. That's what I love about that company is they really make other educational institutions push towards directions like that. Before we talk about successes, because it sounds like, you're already seeing some early successes, I did want to talk about some of my own successes that I've seen in this type of thing. I have 2 boys, and I don't know if it's just boys or what, but at the time they hit maybe 13, 14, 15 years, they want to feel like they have a place in the community. And I remember my oldest son feeling really frustrated that he wanted to be, he wants to do medical stuff. He wanted to be an EMT. He wanted to do stuff like that. And he just got so tired of doing all the same stuff he had been doing for the last, 10 years of his schooling, and wanted to actually be working with his hands. And that's what I've seen him be so excited about, finally getting to a place where we have a technical high school here, and he was able to actually, take an EMT course and stuff. But that propelled my second boy. I mean, he's at that same place. I remember my oldest son being at, like, they want a place in this world. They want to be out in society doing that thing. And we enrolled him in the Idaho Technical Careers Academy with K-12, and he is just loving it. I mean, everything is designed around, what he wants to be doing. And at first it was engineering. Now he is thinking about doing a healthcare thing too, but it's definitely more, I don't know, it just helps them feel like, wow, I'm moving in a direction, not just learning, just basic garbage that they don't feel has any relevance.
It sounds like education with a purpose isn't only a punchline or a tagline or something cute to say, but it's actually something he's experiencing then.
Yeah. And like I said, I mean, there's a lot of when kids are feeling frustrated and stuck, they're just constantly having to do this same stupid thing. It can create depression. It can create all kinds of really negative emotions. And it's exciting to see them go to feel like they've got like you said, the tagline and education with a purpose. They feel like it's actually moving them towards a direction to have a place in society. But let's talk about successes you've seen in this type of education.
Wow. I want to be respectful of the time that we have. One of the schools that I haven't talked about is our Career Academy in South Carolina. The Cyber Academy of South Carolina is one of our destination schools. It's not it's a K-12 school. And we have a program there where about the first year, half the students in high school enrolled in the destinations program. So we have over 200 students our first year in the program. And those students are taking advantage of some pathways, programs of study that we have there in business. And I believe in IT, if I recall correctly. It may be healthcare. So we have many programs, many schools, and it's hard for me to keep the matrix just in my head all the time. They just had an amazing event. This is February is is National CTE Month. And last week, I believe, if I have my calendar right, so that would have been the second week in February, was Skills USA Week. And so in conjunction with both of those, they had a live event. When you talk about, it's a virtual online school, South Carolina, big state, kind of a big state geographically. It's not huge, but if you've ever driven across it, is it soup yet? Am I there yet? It's a big state. And so in conjunction with Greenville Technical College, they had an event where Greenville provided people who were faculty at the school, local business people, all came in, talked to students who came and were there. And our hope is that Greenville Technical College and other technical colleges throughout the state of South Carolina will be partnering with CASC in both the areas of dual enrollment and being involved in internships and such. Another school that I'll mention is our Utah school. So same type of program, and they have about 100 students, which is a significant percentage. of their high school that during their first year became involved in the program. And unfortunately, you and I both know that one of the biggest challenges associated with high school today is just dropouts. And whether it's
and I think that's because they're bored. I mean, if they're anything like my boys, they wanted to drop out. It was me like, no, you got to finish this.
Yes, they don't know why they're doing anything. They don't know why they're going to school every day. And one of the interesting, amazing thing that we've seen is out of the almost 100 students that are in the program, I was about to say 2 or 3%, but really it amounts to 2 or 3 students have either moved or gone someplace else, or, people. I mean, there are good reasons that people go to other schools. They pick up and move to other states and things like that. But just a significant commitment and amount of engagement. There are students there for whom one pathway isn't interesting enough. They offer especially IT pathways because Salt Lake City is what I would think of as the third largest center for high-tech jobs in the country, game design, et cetera. But there are students there who want to earn multiple credentials. And frankly, that's not something that working with the program as a product manager, as I do, having worked with our people back in Herndon to help design these programs. And that's a totally unanticipated result in the first year. So those are 2 instances. Obviously, we're really proud of our Idaho school. In our Colorado school, I'll talk about for a minute. They have a program that in their first year, they've already earned a designation from Skills USA as a quality program, and it's only February. So in really in the first half of the year they've done, and they'll lap that as they go through the rest of the year. But I don't know if you or maybe your listeners know of a woman named Kayleen McCabe. And Kayleen is on the DIY network. She is an amazing woman and spokesperson, in addition to being a television star, for bringing pride in the trades back. And that's, I have heard her say that if she goes for a couple of days and she hasn't been around sawdust, she really feels incomplete. And so Kayleen has associated herself with our school in Colorado. We're very proud to have her on board as a member of the advisory committee for that school.
Yeah, that's
and
awesome.
We couldn't be more happy with that. And again, all of our schools either have built or are building advisory committees. That's kind of a shadow component. It's not something that you talk about a lot, but you want members who really know and understand these career fields to be advising your school. But the fact that somebody of her prominence and beyond that, her excitement and enthusiasm, which is totally contagious, wants to be part of our program, it totally blows me away.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Again, I could go on. I know that we have to stop at some point. So if you want to know more, ask, but I'll stop there.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about what you see in the future. I mean, you said a lot of these programs are really new. So you were saying, second and third year, what are some anticipated things that you're thinking will happen?
I think the first theme that I would toss out for that is just better as a word. As you go through something the first time, I used to experience it as a teacher, as a coach. I think we all experience it. People who cook with a recipe, the first time you do something is usually the worst time, and you learn from it, and it gives you the opportunity to build on that and make it better the second year. We're already in the midst of planning for our second year. We have pathways that we will be rolling out next year. If anybody wants to know what those programs are, I'm not at liberty to talk about it yet. And this is not trying to build a false sense of anticipation, but you can certainly come to our K12 website, because I'm sure that loudly and proudly we'll be announcing it in the next month. But I couldn't be more excited that we'll be adding some pathways in addition to the programs that we're already offering, a couple in new fields. And a couple of those programs will be building on in a field that we're already working in. That's kind of the tangible better part. We're going to offer more pathways and more courses. Not all of our schools offer all of our pathways. I don't think success for a school in this field of CTE is necessarily trying to be all things to all people. But where that workforce need is in that state, whether it's business and IT or manufacturing or wherever that happens to be, that ends up being where we really want to specialize, and we want to help meet that need for the students and for the state as well. In addition to that, though, I meet on a regular basis with the folks who are leaders at these schools. And in recent meetings, unprompted, Rebecca, these folks are really excited about some of the things, large and small, that they have learned going through this in their first year. And we have folks, by the way, they're not new to the world of CTE. Angela Smith in South Carolina, who's our career readiness coordinator, is not new to CTE. Alyssa Baker in Colorado is not. Monty Pittman, who is the head of school at the school that your son's at, it has been in CTE, in the CTE in Idaho forever. But I think to a person, they're really excited about taking some of the things that we've implemented for the first time this year, like the opportunity for students to take a course as many times as they want in preparation for the ACT work keys tests, and really help students understand the value behind that and the power of doing something like that.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah.
So that first theme, I think, is better. I think the second thing, especially from a corporate standpoint, is that we continue to look at what are components that are important parts of a quality CTE program, and to bring those components either into our programs or to make them easier for our families to access. I'm being vague a little bit on purpose, but again, in the past 6 weeks, I'd say, we've had the opportunity to review many great services that are out there that provide many different opportunities in the CTE world, whether it's kind of that opportunity I talked about before, which is bringing somebody remote literally into your classroom, they're still remote, but where they can talk about the relevance of particular content in their field, or some opportunities to layer STEM across our curriculum, or providing students with the opportunity to make their credentials easier to get, or to give them a wider variety of dual enrollment options than they have right now. So I think sometimes one of the biggest mistakes that we can make, and maybe this is part of the American DNA, is that we tend to take the buffet and we tend to think a better buffet is a bigger buffet.
Yeah. Or that this really buffet works for every student or every state. Or that was the problem we talked about before with high school, that it's gotten so general, that everyone is kind of learning the same thing, that it's not very specialized or anything like that. And so then there ends up being the only people, it's really just gearing everyone towards college, but that's not really the best path for every person. So.
Exactly.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I love it. And I always kind of imagine that, I've worked with K12 for 12 years, but I really imagine it. That's one thing I get more and more frustrated with, is I just see education going very personalized, because that's what I've experienced with K12. But it just seems like the rest of the educational world wants it to be really general. That's one of the problems that we've had kind of with some of the stuff that's came down through the Department of Ed, is that, they want it just more generalized, and that's not always the best option for, especially when we get choice in everything. We get choice in our music. We can pick and choose, and we can just take one song off an album that we love and just have that one song, not have to buy the whole album like we did before. And that's really, what education should be about, kind of individualizing it.
Yeah, I agree. We live in a country where the only thing better than the choices that we have are more choices.
Yeah.
I've lived long enough, for instance, to see television go from 3 channels to, the 100 or 1,000 or however many that we have today. But I think one concern, and it's something that we certainly want to be careful of in our programs, is we want to help provide more choices for students, and we want to help provide more individualized learning. And at its heart, there's nothing more individualized than a great CTE program. But at the same time, using the television metaphor, those 100 or thousands of channels, there sometimes is a lack of quality. Mm-hmm. And, it's pretty common to hear the story of, I was flipping channels last night and really couldn't find anything to watch. And in fact, look at the migration of people now to Netflix and to other just view on demand. I don't know how many people talk about what they're going to binge watch over the weekend these days. By the way, wouldn't it be great for students to go home and talk about what they were going to binge learn over the weekend? I don't know that we're that far yet, but I think we want to be sure that, again, while we're providing that wide breadth of opportunity for students, we want to make sure that we're doing it in a way that they like it, that they're engaged in it, and that it makes sense from a standpoint of outcomes. Because like you said, we in education especially, we as professionals talk a lot about individualized learning. It's a goal. It is something that every teacher wants to do. But it's very, very difficult for a teacher to do that for all 150 or 200 students that they have. And then on a larger level, the way that students are assessed is certainly not on an individualized basis. And so I think at some point, that's not a K-12 problem. That's an education problem. We'll figure that out. But while we're in the process of figuring that out, we want to build really high quality CTE experiences for students. And one other thing that I'll mention is good career education isn't something that starts in ninth grade. And it isn't something that only happens at a career academy or someplace other than the main school in the community. All of our schools have a catalog of about 25 courses now that they can draw from to help bring students up to speed on careers that are outside of the fields that we've talked about, careers like careers in criminal justice, culinary arts, a lot of opportunity for all students at least to understand what their options are and to broaden the world for them. And we're excited to be providing that for all of our students in that sense. And then for those students who and families who enroll in our destinations academies and programs, obviously we're able to offer those more specialized, in-depth credential bearing programs.
Wow. And with K-12, I mean, that's one thing that I loved all the time is that there were always improvements going on, and you knew that making it better was always what they wanted to do. So I definitely believe that will be happening within your schools. Before we say goodbye, do you have any parting words for our listeners? And then give us your contact information. Let's help families find these schools.
Sure. So let me first mention that the 6 schools are in Idaho Technical Career Academy, or ITCA. Everybody loves acronyms. And in no order, by the way, there is in Colorado, our Colorado Destinations Career Academy. In Utah, at Utah Virtual Academy, we have a program that's a program in the school. And the same thing is true in South Carolina at our Cyber Academy of South Carolina. And then in 2 other states, we have dedicated schools, just like you do in Idaho, for career. One of the states is Wisconsin. And so we have Wisconsin Career Destinations Academy. We also have in Nevada, the Destinations Career Academy of Nevada. We're excited about those 2 schools. This is the first year of existence for each of them. Again, we see amazing things out of those 2 schools. We have a great relationship with the union in Wisconsin, where I think we're helping to provide what they perceive as a statewide need. And we hope to build more of those types of relationships. I couldn't be more thankful to be involved in education with where it's at right now. Education is not easy, and certainly it's controversial. It involves all of our students, and so it should be controversial. We should care. By the same token, I think we're at the beginning of several decades of improvements that technology will help to make possible, but also that really good, dedicated teachers and administrators and thought leaders in this area will make possible. I think career education is just the first area where we're going to make huge strides and enormous improvements in the quality of the educational experience for students. And think about some of the things that we've talked about. Individualized education. So students not feeling like a number. Students finding relevance in what they're doing. Students even being excited. And then probably what they don't realize is when they walk across the stage to get their diploma, they're walking across their stage with so much more than I walked across the stage with. And that's the opportunity, whether they take advantage of it or not, to earn credentials, to earn college credits, etc. I think there is a lot of negativity in the national conversation about education, and there certainly are problems that need to be solved. But I think in the last hour, we've been able to talk about something that's happening in this country that is positive. It's not smoke and mirrors. It's if you provide students with something that they're interested in and purposeful, they're going to eat it up. I think we just have to get better at that. And that this will become a model for how do we get more girls or more minorities in STEM fields? How do we raise math and reading scores across the country? Because we all know if students are interested in something, they'll read about it. And if they're not interested in it, let's face it, if you weren't interested in it, would you read about it? This is all necessary, I think, to build a wave where the technologies that have been created over the past 10 or 20 or 30 years that we kind of toy with today, and things like Twitter and Snapchat and other things like that are byproducts of it, really are brought to bear to help solve some of our huge social, economic, and physical scientific problems, whether it's global climate change, whether it's bringing food everywhere. I mean, today we have drones. Can't we figure that out? Can't we get food? And it's students who are in these CTE programs that I really think will be best positioned to help solve and help figure out those challenges.
Definitely. I definitely believe that. I never envisioned myself being an advocate for education, but like you said, I mean, just the little bit that I've been part of it, I just feel so excited about it and hopeful, and there's so much exciting things going on, and that's what it's just fun being able to spread that information and let people know. Do you have contact information that you'd like to share?
Of course I do. The K12 is available online at K12.com. All the time. From that place, from that area, you can come and check out our schools, the 6 schools that I mentioned, any school that might happen to be in your state. We also offer some blended programs across the country. We have 3 private schools that we haven't mentioned at all. And I feel as if I've been derelict in my duty to do that. But we have private schools that really serve students around the world and in states that we don't have virtual academies. So come to the K12 website, check us out, take a look at us. I'm Pat Keeney. My email address is pkeeney with 3 E's in the last name at K12.com. My kind of off work email address is learningcoachk, all one word, at gmail.com. In either case, if you have some questions about our programs, feel free to contact me. We have my answer, by the way, may be simply passing on to somebody who's much more expert at something than I, or putting you in contact with somebody at one of our local schools. But we're really, really excited about the opportunity to serve as many students as we possibly can in this arena.
Well, and I love the personalized approach just for the parents. I mean, they definitely want to look at, what will help you and your student individually. And I love that about this company. Again, Pat's email is patkeeney@k12.com. or his personal email is learningcoachk@gmail.com. However, we're going to be sure to link all the information that we've discussed today on our website as well, including, some of the links for the schools and things like that. But thank you so much, Pat, for coming on and joining us and helping to light our minds on fire about this important issue of education. I appreciate it.
It is always my pleasure. And I have to tell you that the hour or two that we spent together last year truly was among the best hour or two that I spent. And the same this year. It's always great to talk to you. I look forward to the day when maybe we get to spend an hour together and I get to ask you questions. And perhaps we'll talk again later this year or early next year.
Yeah,
I look forward.
Definitely. We talked about doing something right before maybe school starts in August and see what's up, what's new. So great.
That would be great. All
right. Thanks so much.
Sure. Take care, Rebecca.
Thank you for listening to The Luminous Mind. To learn more about Pat Keeney, go to our show notes at theluminousmind.net. Be sure to become a subscriber to our free email list. Then check out the Services tab to see how we can continue to assist you, our fire starters. Also, to help us continue production of illuminating content, go to the Sponsor tab at theluminousmind.net for more information on sponsorship and affiliate programs. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, Google+, Pinterest, and now Instagram. Get our free audio content by subscribing on YouTube, iTunes, and Stitcher. To help us grow, consider these easy ways. Tell your friends about us, leave us a review, share our content, tell us how we can help you so together we can continue to light minds on fire and change the paradigm of education.